Hi, my name is Noor, and I'm going to represent about my assignment number one, that is on the theories and about the concepts. For introduction, my name is Noor, and I am going to explore how historical and contemporary approaches, theories, and frameworks shape my understanding of children's development, needs, behaviors, and identities as a future of early childhood educator. In particular, I'm going to mention two historical techniques by Locke and Rousseau, two modern techniques Montessori, Reggio and Amelia, two theories of Bridget and Vygotsky, and early years learning framework and national quality standards. Such points of view allow me to interrupt the learning process of children, their development, and instruction, inviting me to design inclusive, engaging, and supportive educational contexts under guidance. Relating them to the practice, I will show how I can apply these notions in my work as an ECT to make sure that all the children will be able to realize their potential according to Australian Standard of Early Childhood Education. Now, if I talk about historical approaches, Locke and Rousseau, historical approaches provide foundational insights into how children develop has been perceived, influencing modern early childhood practices. The view of the child as a tabula rasa or a blank slate, which has been proposed by John Locke, a thinker of the 17th century, implies that the child is born without any knowledge, or his or her development is affected slowly by the surrounding environment and life experiences. This way of thinking assists me in realizing that an ECT my influence is very essential in creating conditions that enhance learning and development. As an illustration, I can develop a sensuous classroom by using materials that allow active play, sand trays, musical instruments, etc. I would be able to enhance the cognitive and emotional development of children, exposing them to the different stimulus that would influence their perception of the world. The views of Locke push me to be a particular in my teaching with an understanding that each counter and material creates an input on the learning path of a child. Contrary to this fact, Jean-Jacques Rousseau made a case of natural development of children, proclaiming that children can be learning by being free and exploring their surroundings in a space that lets them chase their instincts. This will enhance my perception and comprehension of the motivation and the need of children to be autonomous. An example would be a setup an outdoor learning area where the children would be allowed to experiment with things available in nature, such as leaves or even water, in order to be inquisitive and solve problems. The views of Rousseau have influenced my approaches to pedagogy by making me strive towards alternating strict activities with the time to explore and play independently, so the children could become assertive and independent. Collectively, Locke and Rousseau emphasize the relationship between environment and autonomy, which influences my practice as a designer of fluid and child centered learning environments to anticipate a variety of development needs and comply with the emphasis in the EYLF on the children as agents of learning. Now, if I talk about the contemporary approaches like Montessori and Reggio Emilia offer practical frameworks for understanding children's learning styles and needs. The Montessori system proposed by Maria Montessori focuses on self-directed education in a well-prepared environment. This model assists me in knowing the independence and self-control requirement of children. To take an illustration in a Montessori-inspired classroom, I would put low shelves with readily available materials such as wooden blocks or puzzle-type presentation, and then the children themselves can select activities that are at their level of development. This creates decision-making abilities and control as children acquire to choose and accomplish assignments once in a while. The attention to detail, tasks such as pouring water or button close, which is proposed by Montessori, influences my knowledge as well, and the fine motor skills can impact cognitive development and make me include tasks like that in the daily routine to enable holistic development. Reggio Emilia approach considers a child as an active builder of knowledge and focusing on cooperation, creativity, and use of so-called 100 languages of expression. This point of view broadens my knowledge concerning the social and creative needs of children, and especially in varied Australian communities. As an example, I might house a collaborative project of children producing a mural that would reflect their child culture background, which would result in exposure to communication and identity formation. The substantial interest in documentation in Reggio Emilia also prompts me to monitor and document the progress on children to provide them with relevant learning experience through notes or photographs. As an ECT, I will use the same principle in creating an environment that stimulates exploration and collaboration, which makes children feel listed, listened, and empowered. Now, if I talk about the theory and vigosity, theories of child development provide a scientific lens for understanding how children learn and grow. The cognitive development theory by Jean Piaget provides a description of cognitive development phases and pro-professional cognitive stage is likely to be observed in preschoolers and implies the process of symbolic play and ecognism. This theory clarifies on the style of learning in children and the shortcoming of children in learning. As in the case above, a child in the stage will pretend to be engaging in a shop scenario, thus acquiring symbolic thinking. As an ECT, I can contribute to it by offering props such as toy food or cash register and thus stimulate cognitive development through play. Paget can also influence my pedagogy through this activity way of learning where I will be encouraged to develop hands-on games that are at the level of the children in development stages like sorting games to develop classification learning. The socioculture theory introduced by Leif Vygotsky emphasizes the significance of social interaction and the more knowledgeable other in the teaching process. This theory will help me enrich my knowledge about the development of children through relations and cultures. By way of example, I would call for a child learning how to take turns playing a group game as a way of developing social skills. The zone of development concept introduced by Vygotsky also informs me of giving children sufficient but not excessive support to solve whenever something is challenging to them. Give hints to a child in solving a puzzle. These theories influence my pedagogy because they allow finding a balance between independent and guided learning as well as to address the cognitive and social needs of the children in accordance with the requirements of the EYLF that focuses on learning through relationships. Now, if I talk about the EYLF and NQS, what is EYLF and what are the standards? The Early Yearly Learning Framework and the National Quality Standards are cornerstone framework in Australian of early childhood education, guiding my understanding of children' holistic needs. About the EYLF, principle of belonging and becoming, they focus on identities of children, their well-being, and development as an active learners. This framework assists me in comprehending child unique feeling of belonging, especially in integrated community. As an example, I could set up a storytelling circle where the children would tell stories about their culture background, and this would help to promote inclusion and the development of identity. It is also influenced by the EYLF focus on play-based learning, and I am inclined to provide with such activities as a sensory bin or role-playing area which allow exploring and being creative, aligned with them with the development needs of children. Now, if I talk about the NQS, National Quality Standards, in this areas of relationship that are responsive in teaching and safe environments, it also makes me realize how children need secure relationship as well as trust relationship to flourish. That is, I can establish trust by developing regular patterns, for example, daily checkups during which children express their thoughts and support emotional well-being. All of these frameworks from a pedagogical philosophy and focusing on ensuring that there is a child-centered inclusive approach and that such measures are responsive to individual needs that support the growth of all children. Now, I will conclude my presentation. If I will conclude, in conclusion, these approaches, theories, and frameworks provide a comprehensive lens for understanding children in my work as an ECT, emphasizes the role of environment autonomy, which helped me to design through and at the same time adjustable learning environments. Montessori and Reggio Emilia focuses on understanding, child-led, and cooperative learning, which I will apply to my independence and creative play. Piaget and Vygotsky provide information about cognitive and social development. If I talk about the EYLF and NQS that guide my practices as being inclusive, responsive, and student centered co-friendly, with the idea of focusing on children's well-being and development. Now, I have provided some references. Thank you, and I hope you will like my presentation.